The Art of Surrender, an Islamic journey through letting go. What you are about to hear tonight is a sacred journey through the art of surrender, a path illuminated by the wisdom of Islam, enriched by the insights of ancient Stoic philosophers, and woven together to help you release the burdens you were never meant to carry. These teachings require no special knowledge, only your willingness to listen with an open heart. Each lesson builds upon the last, and together they form a practice that can transform not only your life but the lives of everyone your soul touches. Before we begin, take a moment to settle yourself. Feel the surface beneath you, notice the rhythm of your breath, and know that by the time you drift into sleep tonight, you will understand something profound about the nature of holding and releasing, of burden and freedom. We live in a world of clenched fists and heavy hearts. We hold onto words spoken years ago as if they were stones we must carry forever. We hold on to fears about tomorrow as if worrying could change what Allah has already written. We hold on to regrets about yesterday as if our grief could rewrite the past. We clutch these burdens so tightly that our hands ache, our shoulders sag, and our spirits grow weary under the weight of what we refuse to release. Why do we hesitate to let go? Because we fear that if we drop these familiar burdens, we will be left with nothing. But this is the great illusion, the whisper of shaitan that keeps us imprisoned. When you truly learn to surrender, when you practice the sacred art of tawakkul, of trust in Allah's plan, you do not become empty. You become free. You become light. You become filled with a peace so deep that it touches everything around you. Take a slow, deep breath now. Feel the weight of whatever you are carrying. And know that by the end of this journey, you will understand how to set it down, how to place it in the hands of the one who has always been carrying you. Part 1. The Prison We Build. Let us begin with a truth that is both uncomfortable and liberating. Someone hurts you. Perhaps they betray your trust in a moment when you were most vulnerable. Perhaps they speak cruel words about you to others, damaging your reputation. Perhaps they make a promise and break it, leaving you alone when you needed them most. This happens. It is part of being human, part of the test that Allah has designed for this worldly life. You are hurt once. This is the first wound, the actual injury. But then something curious and tragic begins to happen. You think about what happened. You replay the conversation in your mind, hearing their words again and feeling the sting as if it were happening in this very moment. You imagine what you should have said, what you could have done differently. You feel the anger rise, the sadness sink, the resentment take root, and then you do it again and again. Perhaps you do it while trying to fall asleep, your mind racing when your body desperately needs rest. Perhaps you do it while driving to work, missing the beauty of the sunrise because you are lost in the past. Perhaps you do it in the shower, in the quiet moments when the mind is left to wander and always returns to the wound. Each time you replay it, you feel the pain again. What began as a single wound has become 1,000 wounds. The person who hurt you may have forgotten the incident entirely. They have moved on with their life. Perhaps they have even sought forgiveness and changed their ways. But you have not moved on. You have given them permission to keep hurting you day after day, for as long as you choose to hold on to what happened. When you look at it clearly, this is one of the most unreasonable things a person can do. It defies all logic. And yet we do it constantly. All of us. We take a single moment of pain and multiply it endlessly through the strange alchemy of the mind, transforming one injury into an endless source of suffering. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, understood this tendency of the human heart. He taught us that the strong person is not the one who can overpower others in wrestling, but the one who can control themselves when angry. He knew that the real battle is not with the person who wronged us, but with our own nafs, our own ego that wants to hold on to the hurt, to nurse it, to keep it alive. Why do we do this? Why do we hold on to what hurts us? Why do we carry burdens that serve no purpose? The answer is both simple and difficult to accept. We hold on because we do not know how to let go. We have never been taught. We have learned 1,000 skills in our lives: how to read and write, how to navigate complex social situations, how to manage our careers and relationships. But the skill of releasing, of opening the hand of the heart and allowing things to fall away, this most essential art has been neglected in our education. The Quran tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear. This verse contains a profound teaching about what we are meant to carry and what we are not. Allah, in His infinite wisdom and mercy, knows exactly what each soul can handle. He would never give us a burden too heavy, but we, in our ignorance and stubbornness, pick up additional weights that He never intended for us to carry. We add to our divinely appointed tests with self-imposed suffering. The good news, the truly liberating news, is that letting go can be learned. Surrender is not a talent that some people have and others lack. It is not a matter of personality or temperament. It is a skill as practical and learnable as any other. And once you understand the methods, once you have practiced them and felt their effects, you will wonder how you ever lived without them. The weight we carry. Before we can learn to surrender, we must first understand what we are holding. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by things themselves, but by our opinions about things. This ancient wisdom echoes the Islamic teaching that our suffering often comes not from what happens to us, but from how we relate to what happens. Imagine for a moment that you could see inside your own heart, not the thoughts themselves, but the weight of them. Imagine you could see all the things you carry with you through each day, made visible like objects in a room. What would you find there? For most of us, the room would be crowded, suffocating even. There would be old grievances stacked in the corners, gathering dust but never discarded. There would be anxieties about the future, shapeless, heavy things that take up far more space than they deserve. There would be regrets from decades past, still as vivid as the day they were formed, like wounds that we refuse to let heal. There would be expectations, demands we place on ourselves and others, rigid structures that leave no room for Allah's plan to unfold naturally. And there, somewhere in the middle of all this clutter, there would be the present moment, small, cramped, barely visible beneath all the things we have piled on top of it. This is how most people live. They move through their days carrying an enormous invisible burden, and they have carried it for so long that they have forgotten it is there. They have mistaken the weight for the normal condition of being alive. They think that this heaviness, this constant low-grade exhaustion, this feeling of never quite being at peace, is simply what it means to be human. But it is not. The weight is optional. Every piece of it. The past cannot hurt you unless you pick it up and hold it. The future cannot frighten you unless you reach forward and grasp it. The present moment all by itself is almost always bearable. Often it is more than bearable. Often it is actually quite beautiful, if only we could clear away enough clutter to see it. This is not to say that life does not contain genuine difficulty. Of course it does. We live in the dunya, the worldly life, which Allah has told us is a place of trial and testing. There is real loss, real pain, real hardship. The Quran acknowledges this reality repeatedly. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. But even these genuine difficulties become heavier than they need to be when we add to them. When we take a difficulty and wrap it in layers of resistance and resentment and fear, we transform a manageable burden into a crushing one. Consider the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is the direct experience of something difficult. It is the ache in your body, the sadness in your heart, the disappointment of plans gone wrong. Pain is honest. It arises, it is felt, and if left alone, it passes. This is the natural cycle that Allah has built into creation. Everything has its time and then moves on. Suffering is what we add to pain. It is the story we tell about the pain, the resistance we bring to it, the demand that it should not be happening. Suffering is the argument with Qadr, with divine decree. It is the exhausting internal fight against what is already true, what Allah has already written. The Prophet, peace be upon him, taught us that we will be tested in our wealth, our health, and our loved ones. This is pain, and it is inevitable. But how we respond to that pain, whether we accept it with patience or resist it with bitterness, determines whether we experience suffering. Pain is inevitable in this life. Suffering is optional. And the difference between them is surrender, is tawakkul, is the art of releasing what we cannot control into the hands of the one who controls all things. The ripple effect of holding on. There is another crucial reason to learn this skill, one that extends far beyond our own peace of mind. When we cannot let go, we do not suffer alone. Our holding on ripples outward, touching everyone in our lives, creating waves of disturbance that spread further than we can imagine. Think of someone you know who carries chronic resentment. Perhaps they were genuinely wronged at some point in the past. Perhaps they have good reason, by any reasonable standard, to feel hurt. But now, years later, they still carry it. They still bring it up in conversations. They still filter every new experience through the lens of that old injury. What has this done to them? What has it done to those around them? Usually, it has made them difficult to be around. Their bitterness colors their interactions with everyone. It makes them suspicious, quick to perceive slights, slow to trust. It drains their energy, leaving them with little to give to the people who love them. It makes them tell the same stories over and over, dragging everyone around them back into a past that serves no one. This is not a judgment. It is simply what happens when we hold on too long. The weight does not stay contained within us. It spills over into our relationships, our families, our workplaces, our communities. The Quran tells us that Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. This verse speaks to both the individual and the collective. Our internal state creates our external reality. There is a teaching attributed to one of the great Islamic scholars that captures this truth with a touch of humor. He decided to work on his own character out of compassion for all the people who had to put up with him. It sounds like a joke, but it contains a profound truth. Learning to let go, learning to surrender, is not only a gift to yourself. It is a gift to everyone who shares your life. When you are at peace, your presence becomes peaceful. When you are not carrying unnecessary weight, you have energy and attention to offer others. When you have released old grievances, you can meet people fresh, without the filter of past hurts. Your lightness creates space for others to be lighter too. This is the Sunnah, the way of the Prophet, peace be upon him, who was described as having a radiant face and a gentle manner that put everyone at ease. This is why the practice of surrender, though it may seem like a private matter, is actually deeply relational and communal. It is an act of care for the world around you. It is part of fulfilling your duty as a Khalifa, a steward of Allah's creation. When you lighten your own burden, you lighten the burden on your family, your community, and the Ummah as a whole. The backpack we never empty. Let us explore an image that may help make this teaching more concrete, more visceral. Imagine that you are born with a backpack. It is empty at first, light and easy to carry, a gift from Allah to help you navigate this life. As you move through your days and years, you begin to place things into this backpack. Some things are useful and good. A skill you have learned, the ability to read Quran with tajweed, perhaps, or a trade that allows you to provide for your family. A lesson from experience, the wisdom gained from past mistakes that helps you make better choices now. A memory that brings you joy, the laughter of your children, the kindness of a friend, a moment when you felt the presence of Allah so strongly that it changed something in you. These items sit lightly in the backpack and serve you well. They are blessings to be grateful for. But alongside these useful things, you begin to add other items. A grudge against someone who wronged you in childhood, and whom you have never forgiven despite the Prophet's teaching that the one who forgives is closer to Allah. The anxiety about a future that may never come to pass. Forgetting that worry is a form of questioning Allah's wisdom. The voice of a critical parent still commenting on your choices decades later. Voices that drown out the gentle voice of your own fitra, your natural inclination toward good. The shame of a mistake you made long ago, even though you have sought forgiveness and Allah has promised that He is the most forgiving, the most merciful. The fear of being judged by others, giving their opinions more weight than the opinion of the one who truly matters. The belief that you are not enough, that you are fundamentally flawed, forgetting that Allah created you in the best of forms and breathed into you from His own spirit. Each of these things has weight, and the backpack grows heavier with each addition. Now imagine that you never take anything out. You only add. Year after year, decade after decade, the backpack grows more and more full. You walk through life bent forward, straining against the weight. Your shoulders ache. Your back is tired. Every step requires more effort than it should. You move through life as if walking against a strong wind, even on the calmest days. And here is the strangest part, the most tragic part. If someone were to ask you why you carry such a heavy load, you might not even understand the question. You have been carrying it for so long that you have forgotten there was ever another way. You might say, "This is just how life is. Everyone carries this much. It's normal. This is what it means to be an adult, to be responsible, to take life seriously." But it is not normal. It is only common. There is a difference. Look around at the people you know. Many of them are exhausted in a way that has nothing to do with physical labor. They are mentally tired, emotionally depleted, spiritually drained. They feel overwhelmed even when their external circumstances are manageable. They cannot seem to find rest, even when they have time to rest, even when they perform their prayers or go on vacation or try to relax. This is the weight of the backpack. This is what happens when we collect and never release. This is what happens when we forget the teaching of the Prophet, peace be upon him, who said that Allah is more merciful to his servants than a mother is to her child. If Allah is this merciful, why do we carry what he would want us to release? Why do we burden ourselves beyond what he has decreed? The question is not whether you are carrying too much. Almost everyone is. The question is whether you are ready to start taking things out. The question is whether you are ready to sort through the backpack with honesty and courage, to distinguish between what serves you and what merely weighs you down, to keep what Allah intends for you and to surrender the rest. Part 2. The sacred art of throwing away. Now that we have seen what we carry, the question becomes intensely practical. What do we do about it? It is one thing to recognize the weight in the backpack, to feel its heaviness on our shoulders, to understand intellectually that we are carrying too much. It is another thing entirely to actually remove it, to open the backpack and start pulling things out, to lighten the load we have been bearing for so long. Many people spend years, even decades, in this gap between knowing and doing. They are aware of their burdens. They can see how these weights are affecting their lives, their relationships, their health, their connection to Allah. And yet the fingers will not open. The grip will not ease. The release will not come. This is where the teaching becomes specific, where wisdom becomes practice. The Islamic tradition, much like the Buddhist teachings it sometimes echoes, does not simply say, "let go," and leave you stranded with that advice. Islam understands that such words, however true, are not enough. We need to know how. We need concrete methods, practical steps, ways of working with the heart and mind that, over time, loosen the grip on what we hold. There are 4 methods of surrender we will explore together, 4 doorways to the freedom that Allah promises to those who trust in him. Each one approaches the same destination from a different angle. Some will resonate more with your temperament and circumstances than others, but all of them work. All of them have been tested by the great scholars and saints of Islam, by the Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome, by countless seekers over thousands of years who found in these practices a path to peace. The first method is the most direct, the most immediate. It is simply this: throw it away, cast it off, release it consciously and completely, let it go. The teaching of the stick. There is a story told in various wisdom traditions, and it goes something like this. A young student was walking through the forest with his teacher one early morning. They had just finished the far prayer, and the world was in that sacred time between darkness and dawn when everything feels possible, when the barrier between the seen and unseen worlds seems thin. The path they walked was strewn with fallen branches and leaves, the ordinary debris of forest life, nature's way of clearing what has served its purpose. As they walked in silence, for the teacher had requested no talking, that they simply be present with creation, the teacher bent down and picked up a stick from the ground. It was an unremarkable stick, the kind you might step over without noticing, dried wood about a foot long, nothing special. He held it in his hand for a moment, feeling its weight, its texture, the way it fit in his palm. Then he turned to his student and asked a simple question: "Is this stick heavy?" The young student considered. The stick was small, light in any objective sense. "Not particularly," he said. The teacher nodded slowly, as if confirming something he already knew. Then, without ceremony, without any dramatic gesture, he tossed the stick away into the forest. It landed somewhere in the undergrowth, invisible now, returned to the earth. "What about now?" he asked, his eyes twinkling with the light of someone about to reveal a secret. "Is it heavy now?" The student understood immediately. felt the truth land in his heart like a seed finding fertile soil. "No," he said quietly. "It has no weight at all now. It is only heavy when you hold it," the teacher said. And then he continued walking, leaving the student to absorb what had just happened, to feel the layers of meaning in that simple demonstration. This teaching is so simple that the mind wants to dismiss it. Surely there must be more, we think. Surely the path to freedom cannot be as straightforward as putting something down. Surely there must be some technique, some secret practice, some advanced spiritual state we must achieve before we can release our burdens. But Allah does not burden us with complexity when simplicity will serve. The Quran is full of simple, direct teachings that go straight to the heart of the matter. Be patient, for indeed Allah is with the patient ones. Seek help through prayer and patience. Remember me, and I will remember you. These are not complicated instructions. They are simple but profound, easy to understand but difficult to practice consistently. So let us consider, what heavy things are you holding in your life right now? Not in some abstract future sense, but in this very moment as you listen to these words. Perhaps it is a difficult relationship that has been draining you for years. Perhaps it is worry about your health, anxiety about money, fear about the future of your children. Perhaps it is a job that exhausts you, but that you feel you cannot leave, or a conflict that will not resolve no matter how much mental energy you pour into it, or a memory that keeps returning unbidden, playing over and over like a song you cannot stop hearing. Is that thing heavy? Here is the truth, the simple truth that can change everything. It is only heavy when you hold it. The stick in the forest did not become lighter when it was thrown away. It weighed exactly what it had always weighed. Its physical mass did not change. What changed was the relationship between the stick and the one who had been holding it. The moment the fingers opened, the moment the stick left the hand, its weight became irrelevant. It could weigh 1 pound or 100 pounds. It no longer mattered because it was no longer being carried. This is the first profound insight on the path of surrender. The heaviness we feel is not inherent in the things themselves. It is created by our relationship to them, by our holding, by our refusal to let go. Which means that relief is always available, in any moment, regardless of external circumstances. Not by changing what we carry, but by setting it down. Not by solving the problem, but by releasing our grip on it. Not by fixing the situation, but by surrendering it to Allah, trusting that He is Al-Wakil, the trustee of affairs, the one who manages all things with perfect wisdom. Why we hold on. If release is so simple, so readily available, why do we not do it? Why do we continue carrying what makes us tired and unhappy and disconnected from Allah? Why do we burden ourselves beyond what He has decreed for us? Part of the answer is habit. We have been holding on for so long that we have forgotten there is any other option. The grip has become automatic, unconscious. We do not actively choose to hold on each moment. We simply do it because we always have, because it feels like the only way we know how to be. But there is another reason, more subtle and more powerful, more difficult to see and therefore more difficult to address. We hold on because we believe we should. We have constructed elaborate justifications for our holding, narratives that make it seem not just reasonable but necessary, even righteous. We believe that holding on to a grudge is a form of justice, that our resentment somehow balances the scales of what was done to us. If we let it go, we fear we are saying that what happened was acceptable, that the wrong done to us didn't matter. We are letting the other person off the hook, betraying ourselves and our pain. But this is not what Islam teaches. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "The strong person is not the one who can overpower others. The strong person is the one who controls himself when angry." He also said, "Whoever suppresses his anger when he is able to give vent to it, Allah will fill his heart with satisfaction." Holding on to anger and resentment is not justice, it is self-punishment. True justice belongs to Allah, and when we release our grip on revenge and resentment, we are not excusing the wrong. We are simply freeing ourselves from its continued power over us. We believe that holding on to worry is a form of responsibility, a sign that we take our obligations seriously. If we let go of our fears about the future, we imagine we are being reckless, irresponsible, naive. We are tempting fate, failing to protect ourselves and those we love. But again, this is not what we are taught. The Quran tells us, say, "Never will we be struck except by what Allah has decreed for us. He is our protector. And upon Allah let the believers rely." This is not fatalism. It is tawakkul, trust in Allah combined with taking appropriate action. The Prophet taught us to tie our camel and then trust in Allah. We do what is in our power, and then we release the outcome to the one who controls all outcomes. Worry beyond this is not preparation. It is a form of forgetting Allah's power and mercy. We believe that holding on to regret is a form of learning, that we need the pain of past mistakes to remind us not to repeat them. If we release our grip on shame and self-recrimination, we think we will forget the lesson, become careless, make the same mistakes again. But the Islamic tradition distinguishes between two forms of regret. There is the regret that leads to tawbah, to sincere repentance and return to Allah. This is healthy, productive regret. It acknowledges the mistake, seeks forgiveness, makes amends where possible, and then moves forward with renewed commitment to doing better. Then there is the regret that becomes chronic rumination, endless self-punishment, a refusal to accept that Allah has forgiven what we have asked forgiveness for. The Prophet said, "The one who repents from sin is like one who has no sin. If Allah has wiped the slate clean, who are we to keep marking it?" These beliefs, that resentment serves justice, that worry shows responsibility, that chronic regret enables learning, are worth examining very carefully because they are the bars of the cage we have built around ourselves. They are the invisible chains that keep us bound to suffering long after the initial cause has passed. The practice of ritual release. Knowing that we can let go is one thing. Actually doing it, making it real and visceral and complete, is another. This is where ritual can help tremendously. Human beings are not purely intellectual creatures. We are embodied souls, and our bodies need to participate in our spiritual transformations. There is a practice, simple but powerful, that can help make the act of release tangible and real. It involves the body, the earth, and the elements, all part of Allah's creation, all available to help us in our journey of surrender. Find yourself in nature if you can. A forest, a park, even your backyard. If you cannot go outside, you can adapt this practice indoors. But there is something particularly powerful about being in the natural world when you do it, surrounded by Allah's creation, reminded of the vastness and beauty of what He has made. Look around until you find a stick or a stone, something substantial enough to have a bit of weight. As you search for it, think about what you are carrying, what you are ready to release. Maybe it is a grudge against someone who hurt you years ago. Maybe it is anxiety about your financial future. Maybe it is shame about a past mistake. Maybe it is the voice of someone who criticized you, whose words you have been replaying for longer than you care to admit. When you have your stick or stone, sit with it for a moment. Hold it in your hand. Feel its weight, its texture, its temperature. And then, with a pen or a knife or even just your intention, mark it somehow with what you are releasing. It might be a name. It might be a word like worry or shame or anger. It might be a date or a place, something only you understand. The specific marking matters less than your clear intention. This object now represents what you are choosing to release. Now comes the crucial part, the part that makes this more than just a mental exercise. Hold the stick or stone, feel its weight one more time, and acknowledge what it has been for you. You might even speak to it. This is the resentment I have carried toward my brother for 3 years. This is the fear about my daughter's future. This is the shame of what I did when I was young and foolish. Do not rush this part. Let yourself feel it fully, perhaps for the last time. And then, with full presence and intention, with a small prayer or even the words Bismillah, in the name of Allah, throw it as far as you can. If you are near a river or the ocean, throw it into the water and watch it sink. Watch the water close over it, watch it disappear. If you are in the forest, throw it into the undergrowth, return it to the earth from which it came. If you have a fire, burn it, watch the smoke carry it away, watch it transform into air and ash. The physical act matters profoundly. There is something about the motion of throwing, the arc of the object through the air, the release of the fingers, the finality of watching it go, that communicates with the deeper parts of your being. It speaks to the heart in a language the heart understands. It is not enough to simply think about letting go. The body needs to be involved. The ritual makes it real, makes it complete. Some people have adapted this practice in their own ways, making it fit their circumstances and temperaments. One person suggested finding a stone, painting a word on it with spray paint so it is clearly marked, and then throwing it into a moving river, watching the current carry it away, knowing you could never retrieve it even if you wanted to. Others write their burdens on paper, perhaps a letter to someone they need to forgive, or a list of their fears and worries, and then burn it, watching the paper curl and blacken, watching their words transform into smoke and rise into the sky. Others bury things in the earth, literally putting them to rest, returning them to the ground from which all things come and to which all things return. The specific method matters less than the intention behind it and the wholeness of your participation. What matters is the deliberate choice to release, the ceremonial marking of a transition, the acknowledgement that something is being put down consciously and completely. You are not suppressing or denying or pretending. You are truly releasing, truly surrendering it into Allah's hands, trusting that He is sufficient for you. You might try this yourself not as a metaphor but as an actual practice. Not someday but soon, perhaps even tomorrow, if the weather permits and your heart is ready. Find something physical that can represent what you are carrying. Hold it. Feel its weight. Acknowledge what it has been for you. Do not bypass the feeling. Do not skip over the pain or the fear or the anger. Honor it, give it its due, and then release it. Throw it, burn it, bury it, sink it. Let it go from your hand and from your heart. You may be surprised at how effective this simple act can be. Many people who do this practice report a feeling of lightness afterward, as if they have literally shed weight. They sleep better that night. They wake up feeling different, freer. The thing they released does not consume their thoughts the way it used to. When it arises, as old patterns sometimes do, they can remind themselves, I threw that in the river. I buried that in the ground. I burned that to ash. It is gone, and I am free. The prison cell. Let us explore another image, a story that illuminates this teaching of throwing away from a different angle. Imagine a prison cell. It is small and bare, with stone walls and a narrow window high up where a little light filters through. Someone has been held in this cell for a very long time, years, perhaps decades. Long enough that the cell has become familiar, almost comfortable in its own way. The texture of the walls, the pattern of light through the window at different times of day, the sounds of the corridor outside, the rhythm of meals being delivered. All of it is known, mapped, predictable. Now imagine that one day, without warning or fanfare, the door to the cell swings open. There is no guard blocking the way, no voice commanding the prisoner to stay. The way out is clear. Freedom is just steps away. Fresh air, sunlight, the vast world beyond these walls. All of it waiting, available, possible. What happens? You might think the prisoner would rush out immediately, overjoyed at the chance to leave, running toward freedom without a second thought. But this is often not what happens. It is not what the great Islamic scholars observed in people's hearts, and it is not what the Stoics noticed in human behavior. After years of confinement, the prisoner may hesitate at the threshold. The world outside is unknown, unpredictable, vast. Anything could happen out there. The cell, for all its limitations and discomforts, is safe. It is familiar. It is known. There are no surprises in the cell, no risks, no possibility of new hurts or disappointments. In a strange and sad way, the cell has become home. Some prisoners, it is said, when offered freedom, choose to stay. They choose the known suffering of the cell over the unknown possibilities of freedom. They have become so identified with their captivity that they no longer know who they would be without it. The identity of prisoner has become more comfortable than the uncertainty of freedom. This is what we do with our past. We build cells out of our memories, our grievances, our regrets, our old identities. We furnish them with the stories we tell ourselves about what happened and what it means about us. I am the person who was betrayed. I am the person who failed. I am the person who lost everything. And we stay inside these stories, these cells, even when the door is wide open. The past cannot hold you. It has no hands to grip you, no locks to keep you contained, no bars that you did not construct yourself. The only thing keeping you in the cell is your own reluctance to leave, your own attachment to the familiar even when the familiar is painful, your own fear of who you might be outside these walls. Walking out requires courage. It requires a willingness to step into the unknown, to leave behind the identity you have built around your suffering. If you are no longer the person who was wronged, who are you? If you are no longer defined by that old loss, what defines you? These questions can be frightening. They can feel like a kind of death because in a sense they are the death of an old self, the death of an old story. But they are also the questions that lead to freedom. They are also the doorway to discovering who you really are beneath all the stories, beneath all the suffering, beneath all the weight you have been carrying. The Quran asks, "Have you seen the one who takes his own desire as his God?" Sometimes our desire is to hold onto our pain, to stay in the cell because it feels safe. But Allah calls us to something greater, to trust, to courage, to freedom. And here is the truth that can change everything. The door is always open. It has been open all along. You can walk out any time you choose. The past cannot stop you. Only you can stop you. And that means freedom is always available, in every moment, waiting for you to choose it. Part 3. The freedom of wanting to be here. We have explored the first way of surrender, the direct path of throwing away what no longer serves us, of consciously releasing the burdens we have been carrying unnecessarily. It is powerful medicine, this practice of deliberate release. And yet there are times when throwing away is not possible, when we cannot simply discard our situation or walk away from our circumstances. There are realities we must face whether we wish to or not. Illness that cannot be cured, only endured. Responsibilities that cannot be abandoned. Losses that cannot be undone. Relationships that, for better or worse, are woven into the fabric of our lives. Bodies that age and decline despite our wishes. Circumstances that are beyond our control, written by Allah's pen before we were born. What then? When we cannot throw the burden away, when we cannot escape the difficulty, when we are trapped or feel trapped by circumstances beyond our power to change, what do? How do we find peace in the inescapable? How do we surrender to what we cannot control? This is where the second way of surrender becomes essential, even life-saving. It does not ask you to discard anything. It does not require you to change your external situation. Instead, it transforms your relationship to whatever situation you find yourself in. It is an interior revolution that changes everything without changing anything. The teaching is deceptively simple, so simple that the mind may resist it, looking for something more complicated, more effortful, more impressive sounding. But simplicity is not the same as ease, and this teaching, though simple to understand, can take a lifetime to truly embody, to live from bone deep. Here it is, want to be where you are. That is all. That is the entirety of the second method. Wherever you find yourself, whatever is happening, in whatever circumstance Allah has placed you, want to be there. Not because you have to, not because you should, not because you are forcing yourself or pretending, but because wanting to be here, truly embracing the reality of this moment, is the doorway to a freedom that cannot be taken from you by any external circumstance. The monastery and the prison. There is a story that beautifully illuminates this teaching. A story that has been told in various forms across traditions, but always points to the same profound truth. It concerns a monastery in a rural area and a maximum security prison not far away. For many years, monks from the monastery would visit the prison to teach meditation, to offer spiritual guidance, to simply sit with the inmates as one human being with another, reminding them through presence alone that they were not forgotten, not written off, still valued in Allah's eyes even if the world had judged them harshly. One monk in particular developed a strong rapport with the prisoners. They appreciated his honesty, his lack of judgment, his willingness to sit with them as equals rather than looking down on them as criminals or failures. He treated them with dignity, and they responded to that dignity by opening their hearts to him. After some time, the prisoners grew curious about this man who came to see them each week. What was his life like? What did monks actually do all day? They had images in their minds. Peaceful gardens, quiet meditation, simple but pleasant accommodations. They imagined his life must be much better than theirs, much freer, much more comfortable. One evening, they asked him to stay a bit longer after the formal teaching. They offered him tea and some snacks, chocolate cookies that someone's family had sent, things they saved for special occasions. And they began to ask questions about his life, genuinely interested. "What time do you wake up in the morning?" one prisoner asked. 4 o'clock, the monk replied simply. The prisoners exchanged glances. For in the morning, that was earlier than even the prison wake-up call. 4 in the morning? That's really early. Do you have to? Well, it's not exactly required, the monk said. We can always get up earlier if we want to. The prisoners weren't sure if he was joking. And then what do? We pray far, of course. And then we meditate. For how long? A few hours, usually. Sometimes more if it's a special day of practice. A few hours? The prisoners were incredulous. Can't you watch television or something? Listen to music? We have TVs in our cells. Don't you have any entertainment? We don't have televisions, the monk said. Or radios. Or music. Or phones. We try to limit distractions so we can focus on spiritual practice. Now the prisoners were genuinely shocked. Even in prison, they had access to television, to music, to various forms of entertainment. The monk had less freedom in that regard than they did. So after all that meditation, you must have a good breakfast. That must be something to look forward to. We have a small breakfast, usually just a bowl of cereal or some bread. Simple food. That's it? Here we can have bacon, eggs, whatever we want from the commissary. You only get cereal? Yes, we eat simply. It's part of the practice, not being attached to food, not making the belly the focus of the day. The prisoners shook their heads in disbelief. So then what? You have the rest of the day free? Not really. After breakfast, we work. Hard physical labor most days, building, cleaning, gardening, maintaining the grounds, whatever needs to be done. We take care of everything ourselves. But at least you must have a good lunch. You must be hungry after all that work. We have lunch, yes, our main meal of the day, but we eat it from a single bowl. Everything goes in together, the rice, the vegetables, the soup, whatever is offered, all mixed together. The prisoners looked at each other in horror. Everything in one bowl? All mixed together? Even in solitary confinement, they give you a tray with separate compartments. You don't even have compartments. No compartments. It's a practice in non-attachment, in accepting what comes without preferences. And in the afternoon, you can rest then at least. More work, usually. And then more meditation in the evening. Don't you get bored? Can't you play sports or games? Anything? No, we just sit. Or sometimes we do walking meditation. The point is to be present, not to be entertained. One prisoner, clearly hoping for some relief in this grim picture, asked, "Well, at least you must have a comfortable bed to sleep in after all that." The monk paused. "We don't actually have beds. I sleep on a thin mat on the floor." This was too much. The prisoners stared at him in genuine shock. Even in this maximum security prison, everyone had a bed, thin mattresses on metal frames, basic but functional. This monk, this spiritual teacher they had been learning from, had less comfort than they did. The room was quiet for a long moment. The prisoners looked at this gentle man who had been visiting them, teaching them, treating them with such kindness and respect. And they saw him differently now. They saw someone whose life was, by any material measure, harder than their own. Less comfort, less freedom, less entertainment, less of everything that makes life pleasant. One prisoner, moved by genuine concern and compassion, finally spoke. "That sounds terrible. Your life in that monastery sounds worse than our life here. Why don't you just leave? Why don't you come and stay with us instead? At least here you'd have a TV and a bed and decent food." He meant it sincerely. He was offering what he thought was a better situation, trying to help this monk who seemed to be suffering more than they were. And in that moment, something profound was revealed. Think about what was being compared. A monastery with no television, no music, no comfortable beds, no abundant meals, no entertainment of any kind. A place where you wake before dawn, work hard all day, eat simple food from a single bowl, and sleep on the floor. And a maximum security prison. A prison, to be sure, with its walls and guards and locked doors, with violence and danger and complete loss of freedom. But also with televisions in the cells, decent food on proper trays, beds to sleep in, and far less demanding physical labor. By any objective measure of physical comfort, the prison was in some ways more comfortable than the monastery. And yet people were desperate to leave the prison. They counted the days until their release. They dreamed of freedom. Some risked their lives trying to escape. Some served their entire sentences marking time, waiting, longing for the day they could walk out. While at the monastery, there was a waiting list. People applied and hoped to be accepted. They begged for the opportunity to live that life. Once there, they stayed for years, decades, entire lifetimes. They were not trying to escape. They were grateful to be there. They considered it a blessing, a gift, the opportunity of a lifetime. What was the difference? Only one thing. The people in the monastery wanted to be there. The people in the prison did not. That is all. That is the entire difference between imprisonment and freedom, between suffering and peace. Not the external conditions, not the comfort level, not the presence or absence of walls and bars. Simply whether you want to be where you are. This realization, when it truly lands in your heart, changes everything. Once you understand this principle, you begin to see prisons everywhere, not physical prisons with guards and cells, but the prisons we construct in our own minds and hearts. Any place you do not want to be is a prison. Any situation you resist is a form of captivity. If you are in a relationship and you do not want to be there, if you are constantly wishing you were elsewhere with someone else in a different circumstance, that relationship is your prison. It does not matter how kind your spouse is, how beautiful your home, how enviable your life appears to others. If you do not want to be there, if you are there only out of obligation or fear or habit, you are not free. You are serving time. If you are in a job and you do not want to be there, if you dread Monday mornings, if you watch the clock all day, if you live for the weekend and the vacation days, that job is your prison. It does not matter how good the salary, how prestigious the title, how comfortable the office. If you do not want to be there, you are trapped. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you are in a cell of your own mental construction. If you are in a body that is aging or ill, and you spend your energy wishing you were young again or healthy again, that body becomes a prison. You are trapped inside something you wish you could escape, and the very wishing intensifies the sense of imprisonment. Even a single moment can be a prison. Sitting in traffic, wishing you were somewhere else, that car becomes a cell. Listening to someone talk when you'd rather be doing something else, that moment becomes captivity. Doing a chore you don't want to do, eating a meal you don't want to eat, being in whether you don't like. Each moment of not wanting becomes a moment of imprisonment. We do this constantly. We imprison ourselves dozens, hundreds of times each day simply by not wanting to be where we are, by resisting what is, by arguing with reality, by wishing this moment were different from what it actually is. And here is the remarkable, liberating truth that the great teachers have always known. We can free ourselves just as easily. Not by changing our circumstances, though sometimes that is also necessary and wise, but by changing our wanting. When you want to be where you are free. Instantly. Completely. It does not matter what is happening around you. It does not matter how difficult the situation appears. If you want to be there, you are not imprisoned. This is contentment, qana'a in Arabic, a state praised repeatedly in Islamic teachings. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Wealth is not in having many possessions, but rather true wealth is the richness of the soul." And he said, "Look to those who are less fortunate than you, and do not look to those who are more fortunate, so that you will not think little of Allah's favor upon you." This is not passive resignation, not giving up on improvement or growth. It is active liberation, the deliberate choice to want what is rather than to torture yourself wanting what is not. Practicing presence in small things. Let us bring this teaching down from the abstract to the concrete, from the philosophical to the practical. Let us see how it applies to the ordinary moments that make up most of our lives, the small frustrations and inconveniences that can either be prisons or doorways to freedom. You are driving somewhere. Perhaps you are late for an appointment. Perhaps you have somewhere important to be. You are making good time, everything is going well, and then suddenly traffic stops. Cars ahead of you as far as you can see. Cars behind you, nothing moving. You are stuck, trapped, with no way forward and no way back. What happens in your mind? For most people, resistance arises immediately and automatically. This should not be happening. I need to be somewhere. Why is this taking so long? Who caused this? Why didn't I leave earlier? This is terrible. The body tenses. The breath becomes shallow. Frustration builds, sometimes spilling over into anger. At other drivers, at the road conditions, at the city planners, at Allah for allowing this to happen, at yourself for being in this situation. And does any of this help? Does your frustration make the traffic move faster? Does your resistance change anything about the situation? Does your anger clear the road? Of course not. The traffic will move when it moves, according to whatever is causing the delay and Allah's decree. Your emotional state has absolutely no effect on it whatsoever. Zero. None. All your resistance accomplishes is to make you miserable while you wait. You are stuck in traffic and you are stuck in suffering a double imprisonment, one external and temporary, one internal and entirely optional. Now imagine a different response. The traffic stops. You notice it, there is no denying the reality. But instead of resisting, instead of arguing with what is, you make a choice. You decide in that moment to want to be there. Not because you plan to be in traffic. Not because you enjoy being delayed. Not because being late doesn't matter. But because you are there and fighting reality is exhausting, and there is actually nothing wrong with this moment except your opinion of it, your story about it, your resistance to it. You take a breath. Perhaps you say, Bismillah. In the name of Allah. You let your shoulders relax. You remember that Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. That this delay is part of what He has written for you. That perhaps there is wisdom in it you cannot see. Maybe you were supposed to be late. Maybe there is an accident ahead and being delayed saved you from it. Maybe someone you are supposed to meet needs extra time. Maybe Allah is teaching you patience. Maybe the delay itself is the lesson, the opportunity to practice surrender in a small way so that when big tests come, you will be ready. Or maybe there is no grand reason at all. Maybe it is just traffic, just part of living in a city, just one of those things. And that is okay too. You do not need to know why. You simply accept what is. So you look around. Perhaps you notice the sky which you had not looked at all day. The way the clouds are moving. The color of the light at this time of day. Perhaps you notice the people in the cars around you. Each one a whole world. Each one with their own story, their own struggles, their own journey. Perhaps you use the time to make dhikr, to remember Allah, to say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. Perhaps you listen to the sounds around you. Perhaps you simply sit in stillness, which is rare enough in a busy life, a gift of enforced rest. The traffic has not changed. You are still delayed. You are still going to be late, if that was indeed your fate. But you have changed. You have shifted from resistance to acceptance, from fighting to flowing, from imprisonment to freedom. And in that change, something profound happens. The situation is the same, but the suffering is gone. Peace is possible, even here, even now, even in traffic. This is not positive thinking. It is not pretending that everything is wonderful, that being late doesn't matter, that traffic is actually fun. It is something much simpler and more honest than that. It is dropping the argument with reality. It is recognizing that you are where you are, that this is what is happening, and that fighting this fact creates suffering while accepting it creates peace. The traffic jam becomes a teacher. The delay becomes an opportunity. The thing you were resisting becomes a doorway. The prison becomes, if only for a moment, a monastery. A place of practice, a chance to surrender, a gift wrapped in frustrating paper. Wanting to be here in serious circumstances. There are situations far more serious than traffic, circumstances we would give anything to avoid or escape. And yet they come. They come to all of us eventually. The Quran tells us, and we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient. This is not a threat, it is a reality, a description of what life in this dunya inevitably includes. Illness comes. The body that served us so faithfully begins to fail. Pain becomes a daily companion. The future we imagined, the plans we made, begin to close down. We are left with a reality we never wanted, never chose, would give anything to change. Loss comes. People we love leave us through death or distance. The relationships that anchored our lives dissolve or transform. We find ourselves alone in ways we never anticipated, never prepared for. Failure comes. The career we built crumbles. The business we poured our soul into fails. The dreams we had for our children do not come to pass. We are left standing in the rubble of our expectations, wondering how to move forward. And ultimately, death comes, our own death, approaching at its appointed time with whatever speed Allah has decreed, indifferent to our preferences, unstoppable by any human effort. In these situations, the first way of surrender may not be available. You cannot throw away your illness. You cannot discard your grief. You cannot simply set down the fact of your own mortality. These are realities that cannot be discarded, only faced. What then? This is where the second way becomes not just useful but essential, not just a nice practice but a lifeline. The difference between drowning in suffering and finding peace in the midst of the storm. When you cannot change your situation, you can still change your relationship to it. When you cannot escape where you are, you can still choose to want to be there. When you cannot control what is happening, you can still surrender to it, can still say, Alhamdulillah. Praise be to Allah, for even this, even now. This sounds almost cruel to suggest, doesn't it? How can anyone want to be sick? How can anyone want to be grieving? How can anyone want to be facing death? It seems like we are asking for the impossible, for a kind of self-delusion or spiritual bypassing that pretends suffering is not suffering. But that is not what is being asked. No one is saying that illness is pleasant or that loss is enjoyable or that death is fun. We are not denying the difficulty, not minimizing the pain, not pretending that hard things are easy. What we are recognizing is this: if you do not want to be where you are, you suffer twice. Once from the difficulty itself, the pain of illness, the ache of loss, the fear of death, and again from your resistance to it. You add mental and spiritual anguish to physical pain. You pile despair on top of grief. You multiply fear with resistance. People who face serious illness sometimes discover something unexpected, something that transforms their experience in a profound way. When they stop fighting, when they stop saying, "This should not be happening to me," when they accept where they are, a strange peace becomes available. Not happiness exactly, they are not happy to be sick, but a kind of freedom, a kind of restful acceptance that allows them to be present for their own life even as it becomes difficult. They are still sick. The symptoms have not changed. The prognosis may still be poor, but something in them has shifted, has surrendered, has stopped arguing with reality. And in that surrender they find a rest they could not find while fighting. They can be present with their family. They can enjoy small pleasures. They can laugh and love and live fully even in a body that is failing. This is not giving up on treatment or on hope. It is recognizing that some things cannot be changed, and that peace is still possible, perhaps especially possible, in unchangeable circumstances. It is saying with full honesty, I am sick, and I wish I were not sick, and I am doing everything I can to get better, and also, I accept this. I want to be here, in this body, in this moment, in this life as it actually is, not as I wish it were. The teaching on death. Let us speak directly about death, because this is where the teaching becomes most profound, most challenging, and most liberating. There comes a time for each of us when death is near. The body is failing. The doctors have exhausted their treatments. The family has been called. The end is approaching, written by Allah's pen before time began, arriving at its appointed moment. For many people, this is a time of terrible struggle. They fight against what is happening. They rage against the dying of the light, against the unfairness of it, against God for allowing it. They refuse to accept the unacceptable. They make of their last days a battlefield, a war with reality that they cannot possibly win. And their final time is filled with anguish, not just the physical discomfort of a body shutting down, but the mental and spiritual torment of resistance, of denial, of a desperate wish to be anywhere, anyone other than where and who they are. They make a prison of their deathbed. They die fighting, and the fighting makes the dying so much harder. But there is another way, a way taught by the great saints and scholars of Islam, demonstrated by those who die with iman, with faith, with surrender. Some people, facing the exact same circumstances, find peace in their final days. They accept that they are dying. They want to be where they are, even at the threshold of death, even in that most fearsome transition. This does not mean they wanted to die, that they are glad their life is ending, that they have given up on life. It means they have stopped fighting. They have dropped the argument with Qadr, with divine decree. They have chosen to be present for their own death rather than struggling against it, to surrender into Allah's hands rather than clinging desperately to a life that is ending. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, in his final illness, was heard to say, "O Allah, ease the hardship of death." He acknowledged the difficulty while also surrendering to it. When his daughter Fatima came to him weeping, he whispered something to her that made her smile even in her grief. Later, she revealed that he had told her he was dying, and then he had told her she would be the first of his family to join him. He was present with his death, accepting it, preparing those he loved for it. These people who die with surrender often do so with a quality of grace that touches everyone around them. Their final days, though difficult, are not desperate. They can say goodbye. They can offer forgiveness and ask for it. They can speak their love clearly. Their last breaths, though the end of everything they knew in this world, are somehow peaceful. There is a light in their eyes, a softness in their face, a quality of trust that communicates, "I am going home. I am returning to my Lord. It is well with my soul." This is what becomes possible when you want to be where you are, even at the very end. Even in that moment that most people fear above all others, peace is available. Freedom is available. Not freedom from death. That is impossible. Death comes to every soul. But freedom in death, the freedom of surrender, the freedom of returning consciously and willingly to the one who gave you life. The teaching we have been exploring is not just about being happier in traffic jams or more content in difficult jobs, though it will help with those things. It is about something much deeper and more essential. It is about the possibility of being free in any circumstance whatsoever, including the final circumstance that none of us can avoid. It is about finding peace not through controlling our external circumstances, which we cannot fully control, but through surrendering to what Allah has decreed, through wanting to be where He has placed us, through trusting that He is Al-Hakim, the All-Wise, and that there is wisdom in everything even when we cannot see it. Action and acceptance. Before we move forward, we must address a concern that often arises at this point in the teaching. Does wanting to be where you are mean giving up on change? Does contentment mean accepting injustice, tolerating mistreatment, staying in situations that genuinely need to change? If you want to be where you are, why would you ever work to improve your circumstances or the circumstances of others? This is a crucial question, and the answer is equally crucial. No, absolutely not. Understanding this distinction is essential to practicing this teaching wisely. Contentment, wanting to be where you are, is about your inner state, your heart, your mind, your relationship with reality in this present moment. It is about accepting what is, not about accepting that it must always be this way. It is about surrendering to Allah's decree in this moment, not about being passive or fatalistic about the future. You can be deeply at peace with this moment and still work vigorously to change what needs changing. You can want to be where you are and still take steps towards something better. You can accept reality fully and still strive to improve it. These are not contradictions. They are the balance that Islam teaches, the middle path between paralyzing despair and delusional denial. In fact, contentment often makes positive change more possible, not less. When you are not burning with resistance, wasting energy on fighting what already is, you see more clearly what actually needs to be done. When you are not paralyzed by resentment or fear, you have more energy available for constructive action. When you are at peace with what is, you can respond wisely and effectively rather than reacting blindly out of panic or anger. Think of a doctor in an emergency room. When a patient arrives with a serious injury, the effective doctor does not stand there complaining that this should not have happened, wishing the patient were not injured, resisting the reality in front of them. They accept what is immediately and completely, There is an injury, it is serious, it needs treatment now, and then they act skillfully to address it. The acceptance does not make them passive. It makes them effective. The person in an unhealthy marriage can want to be where they are in this moment, can accept the reality, can stop the exhausting internal resistance, can be present with what is, while also recognizing that change is needed and taking steps to create it. They can go to counseling, have difficult conversations, set boundaries, or ultimately leave if that is what is necessary. The wanting to be here is about this moment, about not adding suffering to suffering. The action for change is about the future, about wisdom and self-protection and growth. The citizen who sees injustice in their society can accept that this is the current reality, can want to be here in this time and place where this work is needed, can embrace their role in working for change. And precisely because they are not wasted by resistance and despair, they can work more effectively, more sustainably, with more wisdom and patience and strategic thinking. This is the Islamic teaching of Tawakkul, trust in Allah combined with taking action. You do what is in your power, and you trust Allah with the results. You tie your camel, as the Prophet said, and then you trust in Allah. You do not sit passively and say, it is all Allah's will, without effort. But you also do not exhaust yourself in anxiety and resistance, forgetting that ultimately, outcomes are in Allah's hands. Cultivating the practice of presence. How do you cultivate this quality of wanting to be where you are? How do you transform the prisons of daily life into spaces of freedom? It begins with a simple question, asked again and again throughout your day. A question that can become a form of dhikr, of remembrance. Do I want to be here? Ask it in the morning when you wake. Do I want to be in this bed, in this body, facing this day? Notice your answer. If the answer is no, if you wake up with resistance, with dread, with a wish to be anywhere else, notice that. Notice the subtle imprisonment you have created before the day has even begun. And then try something. Try wanting to be there. Not because you should, not because it is the right answer, but as an experiment in freedom. See what happens in your body when you shift from resistance to acceptance. Notice if anything changes in your mind, in your heart, in your energy. Ask the question throughout the day. In meetings you did not want to attend. In conversations you did not want to have. In moments of boredom, frustration, impatience. In the traffic, in the queue, in the waiting room. Do I want to be here? And each time the answer is no, each time you notice resistance, try shifting. Even for a moment, even experimentally, see if you can find the wanting, the acceptance, the surrender. This is not about forcing yourself to feel something you do not feel. It is not about pretending or suppressing or denying your true feelings. It is about discovering that the wanting, the acceptance, is available if you look for it. It is about recognizing that your relationship to the present moment is something you have influence over, something you can choose, something that is not determined entirely by external circumstances. Say Alhamdulillah. Praise be to Allah, for where you are, even if it is difficult. This is not fake gratitude or toxic positivity. It is recognizing that even this moment, even this difficulty, is part of Allah's plan for you, and His plan is wiser than anything you could devise. You may not understand why you are here, but you can trust the one who brought you here. Over time, this practice transforms things. The automatic resistance begins to weaken, like a muscle that atrophies when not used. The habitual not wanting begins to soften, to lose its grip. You find yourself more often at peace with where you are. Not because external circumstances have necessarily improved, though sometimes they do, but because you have changed, because you have learned the secret of interior freedom. And in that peace, something remarkable happens. Life becomes simpler, clearer, more vivid. Not because you have given up on improvement or growth, but because you have stopped fighting with reality. The energy you were wasting on resistance becomes available for living, for loving, for creating, for serving. You can be fully present because you are not somewhere else in your mind. You can receive what each moment offers because your hands are open, not clenched in resistance. The prison doors open, not through escape, but through realization. You discover they were never locked. You were always free to want to be where you are. The key has been in your pocket all along. It is called surrender. It is called acceptance. It is called tawakkul. It is called faith. Rest here for a moment wherever you are. Can you want to be here just for this breath? Can you find, even for an instant, the freedom of presence, the peace of accepting what is? This is not the end of the practice. This is the beginning. Every moment is a new opportunity, a new choice, a new doorway to freedom. And when you are ready, we will explore the third way of surrender together, the way of giving without grasping, the way of generosity without expectation, the way of opening the hands and letting blessings flow through you like water, like light. Sleep now if sleep is calling. Rest in the knowing that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Allah has placed you here in this moment, for reasons that may not yet be clear but are nonetheless perfect. You are held. You are safe. You can release your grip and simply be here now, present, free. Alhamdulillah. Praise be to Allah, Lord of all the worlds. The narration would continue with parts 4 and 5, covering the Islamic perspectives on giving without expectation and cultivating a mind that doesn't cling, but I've reached a natural resting point that works well for a sleep story format. Would you like me to continue with the remaining sections?